this be public? Are you ready? All right, and we are public. So just do like a little intro, and then I'll put the song.
All right. We've got the latest MLB trade rumors, and we've got a special guest that's coming up next on The Dugout.
A massive shot! Wow!
The wait is over, and the celebration has begun!
Oh my goodness! See ya!
What is up, Dodgers Nation, and welcome to the #1 Dodgers YouTube channel. But on this show, we'll be talking all baseball on The Dugout. My name is Doug McKain, credentialed member of Dodgers Media. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the Dodgers Nation YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button. Once we get to 94K, we're giving away a jersey for whoever the Dodgers trade for. All you have to comment is "Let Friedman cook" down below. And then 95K, we're giving away a Shohei Ohtani Road Gray Dodgers jersey. But without further ado, we're joined by Mr. Giraffe Neck Mark. He is one of the kings. I'm going to throw it out there. One of the kings of baseball YouTube. 269,000 subscribers. Hey, we're getting close to 100K, Mark. Can we have just give us 5K subscribers, man? Appreciate that. You can also follow him on the X at DraftNeckMark. This guy knows more about baseball than pretty much 99.9% of the planet. But Mark, thanks for rocking with us here on The Dugout, my man.
Dude, thanks for having me on. Excited. We've been talking about this, I feel like, for a couple years now. So it's good to finally get on here and talk some ball with you.
Absolutely. And yeah, a lot of the fans that watch this show love your content because, like I told you before the show, we are stuck in this Dodger blue bubble 24/7, 365. So anytime we can kind of step outside of that and talk about other teams that we could be facing at the deadline for deals for players or in the postseason or in the World Series, it's definitely good to be informed. You definitely do a great job of doing that. But we'll start off with your Mets, man, because you told me before the show you like the whole league, but of course your mighty Mets are definitely the team that takes up most of your time. But you look at the team that you've had this season. Hot start, kind of slow start, picked it up, and kind of ups and downs this season. By the way, I say that the song "Oh My God" is an incredible banger. I listen to it all the time, not even joking, not even ironically. But your Mets, what are they focused on at the deadline, and what are you hoping they get? Who do you talk about? Jack Flaherty, a starting pitcher, a rotational piece. I mean, what is the focus for the Mets at the deadline, Mark?
Yeah, I think right now it's going to be focused on pitching. They picked up Jesse Winker already, which kind of helped us out with a left-handed bat in the outfield that we desperately needed because we'd been playing DJ Stewart and Ben Gamble out there, and those guys just really don't cut it at the end of the day. So Winker was a huge improvement there. But now we're looking at starting rotation. We're looking at more bullpen arms. We grabbed Ryan Stanek a couple days ago. He didn't have the best debut, but he's a good bullpen arm to throw in there because the bullpen has been very shaky for the Mets. And the fact that Kodai Senga went down with a season-ending injury, Christian Scott's down with an injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Tyler McGill and David Peterson are still sketchy every single time they step on the mound. You can't feel particularly confident with them, along with the rest of this rotation kind of just being question marks in general. Definitely looking at the starting pitching market. I'm hoping for Jack Flaherty. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the case, especially with all the rumors that are coming out now, with the Yankees being linked to him. But the rental pitching market seems to be the best fit for the Mets. But also there's not that many actually good rental available pitchers. So I really don't know what David Stearns is going to do. I'm just hoping he surprises me in a positive way.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing for Mets fans is you were thinking maybe we're sellers. I mean, does Alonso go? Do they ship off some guys? I mean, there was a point in this season where I did a whole episode on possibly trying to pursue Francisco Lindor. That's where we were at. You need that early trade deadline content, kind of go after it. But June and July, you just kind of went on a tear. You're in the wild card mix, and clearly you have some needs to address. Now, you look at the Mets bullpen, 19th in Major League Baseball. Do you think that's an area they need to focus on as well? And who are some names? I mean, Tanner Scott, of course, he's kind of the big white whale for a lot of teams. Mason Miller almost feels like the pie in the sky for a lot of teams. The Dodgers end up trading for Michael Kopech, who we know when he's right, and if you could get him right, the velo is top-notch, the strikeout rate's top-notch. It's just about limiting those walks. So he has a high upside potential, but are you looking at targeting any bullpen pieces if you're the New York Mets?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tanner Scott would be shooting for the moon. I think realistically, that's the biggest name in terms of who the Mets I think could get. But his price is going to be so crazy high. I just don't see David Stearns doing that. That's never really been his MO, even when he was in Milwaukee. I think we're probably looking more in the bargain bin of the Chad Greens, the John Brebbias of the world, guys who are on struggling teams that have good peripheral stats, that are striking out guys, that aren't giving up a lot of walks. Not necessarily the sexiest of names, but dudes to just fill up what is a beleaguered bullpen right now for the Mets.
Yeah, I think that's definitely kind of where we're at too, as far as this organization. They do not like to trade assets for relievers because they're volatile. You never know what you're going to get from year to year. This team kind of likes to pour all their eggs in the, okay, let's get an impact starting pitcher. Let's kind of swing big. And if we don't get that, a lot of the internal options are better than we could have traded for. But I think one of those guys that a lot of teams could say can either help them or get them over the top is a Jack Flaherty. And just a few minutes ago, Bob Nightingale reported that the Yankees have been in extensive talks for Jack Flaherty. And you just spent time sweeping the Yankees. I just spent time doing a show why the Dodgers should trade for Jack Flaherty. Now the pinstripes are involved. Just what's your reaction to that?
It hurts. It really hurts because he was probably the top rental guy available on the market right now. And I really was hoping the Mets would go after him. His velo's gone up ever since he went to Baltimore last year. I think he has like the second or third highest K minus walk ratio in Major League Baseball among starting pitchers. He's been phenomenal. He's someone who came up really hot with the Cardinals, then had some injuries, took a little bit of a step back. Cardinals organization doesn't really develop guys like they used to anymore. They've gotten a little bit old in that regard. He moves and he just gets a lot better, and he's been phenomenal in Detroit. He's an impact arm. I think he's a guy who would pitch in a playoff series for Mets or Dodgers, either team that would be, interested in that for both of us here, and especially for the Yankees. It's a huge pickup. I don't think they need the starting pitching help as much as maybe some other teams, but if you can make your team stronger, you should always go and do that. I'm just really interested to see what a package back for him is going to look like because he's the belle of the ball right now. And we've seen some trades that have been crazy returns and someone you're like, that's all they gave up. Like there's been a lot of volatility in the market in general.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder. I mean, you saw with the Arozarena trade, they give up their 12 and their 22 for Arozarena. For a Jack Flaherty, I think the big question is, does Skubal move? Does Crochet move? Because if that is a no for both of those guys, he is the top guy available. I mean, Kikuchi definitely could be a top mid-tier type rotational starter, but I think if Jack Flaherty, if he goes wire to wire with these numbers, as you mentioned, a 27.5 strikeout to walk rate, that's the second best in Major League Baseball. 32% strikeout rate, that is fifth in the sport. We know that teams know that that's what plays up in the postseason. The ERA at 295, expected at 293. So if that levels out, you're still looking at a guy who could front a rotation for a lot of teams in the postseason. Also, too, you love the fact that, hey, he's going to be playing for a big contract, right? This is a pure rental. And a lot of teams, you don't want to bring back guys with multiple years of arbitration because you have to give up a ton. You don't know what they're going to be. Flaherty is that perfect deadline rental, and he's really the only one at his status this year. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, do you think he goes to the Yankees, or is it kind of one of those, Bob Nightingale situations?
I'm really hoping it's a Bob Nightingale situation.
Yeah.
I want him across town in Queens, but usually I feel like Bob's been a lot better recently about his rumors and his sources. So if he's saying right now the Yankees are hot, I'd believe him. But maybe this is also a way to try and get the Mets or the Dodgers or the Astros or another team that needs starting pitching to wake up and give a call and bump up that price. Who knows? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I love Bob Nightingale. He's been on the show multiple times. Like you said, he has definitely been on a hot streak as far as his consistency of late. But also say, I woke up yesterday and the first thing I read was the Dodgers and the Yankees are in a bidding war for Isaac Paredes. Yes. And then, of course, we know he goes to the Cubs. So you just never know. I always say it's kind of lying season too when it comes to the trade deadline. But let's say it's a Skubal, a Crochet situation. Do you think that Skubal ultimately gets dealt? Because John Morosi, he reported that he feels like it's a higher likelihood that Skubal gets traded than Crochet at this point. We know that this is a guy who, a Cy Young caliber pitcher under 2 more years of team control. The question is, does Detroit really burn it down and maximize his return right now? Or do they say he could be a part of a contention window for us? Just what's your read on the Skubal situation?
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of made it clear that they will trade him if given the right pieces back. And the big one was they're like, hey, Jackson Holiday. We want Jackson Holiday. You give him that, Tarik Skubal's yours. So I think it's going to be tough for any team to compete with a Jackson Holiday asking price. And I know the Orioles were like, no, we're good. We can't give up Jackson Holiday. I think that would be the right decision. It's weird because I don't think the Tigers are that far away, even though they're not close, which is kind of a weird sentence to say out loud. The thing that scares me with Skubal is the innings on his arm. He hasn't thrown like 150 innings since 2021. And even then, 150 innings, he's coming up that in his next 3 starts. And you want him to go into the postseason. He's going to be going to a competitive team. It's definitely risky, but when this guy is healthy, when he's on, as he has been this year, he is one of the 5-10 best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. So, I mean, even if you're thinking from the Dodgers perspective of like, what could they give up if they wanted to go crazy and go after a Skubal guy? Like, you're giving up your top 2, maybe top 3 prospects. You are going to give up a haul back. And it's really the only way that makes sense for the Tigers to give up on him right now.
Yeah, and if you are the Orioles, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's tough to compete with the top prospect in baseball, right? The Dodgers' highest ranked prospect is close to 50, right? Dalton Rushing at 48, you have DePaula at 63. It's tough to compete with the treasure trove of elite prospects that the Orioles have, and you know somehow, some way, you're going to go back to the factory and get a couple more in the next couple of seasons. So if they do move those pieces, that really indicates that the Orioles are saying, look, we lost Means, we lost Wells, we have Burns for this season, and you really do need a frontline guy for this window if you're the Orioles. I think they should absolutely go all in for Skubal. If you were the Orioles, would you do that?
I'm not trading Jackson Holiday.
Okay.
I would give any other prospect. I really would. Like Basayo, I know is highly rated. Throw Kobe Mayo in there too. Like whoever you want, but I personally can't give up on Jackson Holiday just yet. He's 20 years old. He already got the call up to the majors. I know it wasn't a good stint, but that's the one guy that I wouldn't move. It feels like he's going to be a franchise player for some organization wherever he does end up, and it would be too quick to give up on him for Tarik Skubal, who's incredible, but man, it's so tough. If this was the Mets, I don't know if I'd be saying the same thing because Skubal makes the Orioles like the best team in baseball, arguably.
Yeah, if they could find a way to get Skubal without giving him a holiday, then I would absolutely be floored if I was an Orioles fan to pull that off. But it just doesn't feel like it is going to come to fruition because the Tigers have kind of danced around it. They're probably listening, but you would have to absolutely blow them away. Now, Garrett Crochet, on the other hand, though, the White Sox, they're the funniest team ever, right? It's like they're the worst team in baseball, yet they have like 6 players that everyone wanted. And then it's like you have these 6 great, guys that can help teams. Some are elite, some are just role player types, but then you have a lot of just replacement level players. Do you think Crochet gets dealt? Because the contract extension little wrinkle there last week, I think might have thrown a lot of teams off.
I think it definitely threw some teams off, just because maybe some teams don't want to give him a contract extension, even if they think he's good and they're excited for him to be the next 2 years. There are arm concerns with Garrett Crochet. Another guy who's literally never thrown any innings in a season at all. Even when he was at Tennessee, was not a guy who threw a lot of innings. So I think that Crochet is probably less likely to move, and that is some posturing by his agent. And I will say this, shout out to them. I'm not going to pitch games unless you pay me. Like I know the risk on my side as well, especially when he's not in control of where he gets traded. This is kind of a way for him to take control and make sure that he's going to a right team, the right organization, right time. But it is bizarre how the White Sox are so bad, yet there are guys that you want, and Garrett Crochet being one of them. And I got to say, shout out to Chris Getz, their GM. He's doing a really good job thus far at the trade deadline. Like I don't know how you guys feel over as Dodgers fans, but like getting Miguel Vargas back relatively for like Fetty and Kopech, I think that's a great job over there. So if they're looking to retool, Garrett Crochet will get them a ton back. It might, again, if you go to the Orioles, you might get like Basayo and those guys, but do those teams then want to pay that extension if Crochet is really standing hard on that? I don't know.
Yeah, and he did have some comments about it the other day where he kind of just didn't really address it. And I'm agreeing with you. I 100% agree that if you have that kind of power right now, might as well flex it. And we saw what Mitch Keller got and Kyle Freeland got. And those are moves that you need to make. I mean, we've seen guys get extensions done with 2 years of arbitration left. And look, it can happen, but for him to be different because it'd be north of $100 million. So you would really have to commit to it. But I think if you're the Dodgers, you're one of those teams who's crazy enough to do that deal, just because history tells us that they're not as risk averse as you think. I mean, the Glasnow deal, he was injury prone. They trade for him, extend him. Yamamoto, he hadn't pitched in Major League Baseball. You give him $325 million. So I still think that the Dodgers probably maybe gained a tiny bit of leverage, just knowing that that eliminates a lot of teams out there just because of, hey, this is someone that has been an elite starting pitcher for 4 months and he wants 100+ million.
That almost feels like Crochet's agents like, hey, we want to go to the Dodgers, we want to go to
Yeah.
the Mets, we want to go to the Yankees, we want to go to the Phillies, like these teams that are going to be big, that are going to spend. We want to go there. We don't want to get traded to like the Kansas City Royals or something like that.
Yeah, he's a big CAA guy too, Ohtani's agency. So I'm trying to, put the tinfoil hat on, put the pieces together. So yeah, we're all hoping and praying for Crochet to LA because we just feel like he's got that almost Andrew Miller type stuff that just takes you over the top and can dominate in the postseason. But how about a Yusei Kikuchi? I mean, you're on the East Coast. Sure, you've seen a lot of Kikuchi. Is he someone that really moves the needle for you if you're a team that's not looking for that game one starter, but is looking for rotation help?
I think he is a great depth piece to grab at the deadline. He's someone who we've seen kind of flutter back and forth between like what kind of pitcher we think he can be or could be. But one thing that he's done the last couple of years is lower that walk rate. And that was something that really hurt his floor as a major league pitcher. That made you think maybe there was some reliever risk there. And not that there isn't still, but the fact that he's able to strike out 26% of the batters he's facing, walking 6%. That's really good. That is good enough, again, to be a back-end starter, I think, in a playoff rotation. That's good enough to get some big innings down the stretch in September when you're making a push for the postseason. He's one that I just don't know what the price is going to be for him because he's more valuable because of the lack of rentals that are available. But are the Blue Jays are in a weird spot too, where they've basically made it well known, hey, if you're not on a contract for the next season, we are going to be moving you. So they've kind of lost their leverage. It's interesting. Personally, for me with the Mets, I would take Kikuchi. I wouldn't get excited about Kikuchi. And I feel like that would be the same way for the Dodgers and any of the big teams. He's not an exciting player, but he will make your team better.
I agree with you. And at least he's one of those guys who is going to get dealt. And They just traded Justin Turner to the Mariners. The Blue Jays, they are going to trade away the rentals. Question is, will they trade any of those guys that have multiple years of team control, or they dip into next season with Bo Bichette and a Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? But Kikuchi, I think, does make some sense in the sense that, look, he's owed $3.3 million left this season. He's not going to break your bank or anything like that. He has velocity. He's had stretches where really he's been dominant. I just wonder if he's a true number 3 for the Dodgers, though, if everyone's healthy. Where does he fit in if everyone comes back? We know it's probably not going to happen, right? Just history tells us that. But if Kershaw builds on his last start, I mean, the velocity was pretty consistent. I mean, as long as he has the feel for the slider, Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone. I mean, River Ryan, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He looked fantastic. So that's kind of how I look at it if I'm Andrew Friedman is, which of these acquisitions would truly supplant the in-house internal talent? I'm not so sure Kikuchi necessarily blows you away from that standpoint, but I think if you are a team that doesn't have the talent that the Dodgers have, he does make some sense. Any other teams you could think of that really could use Kikuchi services?
I mean, I'm looking more so at the teams, maybe not at the top of the teams fighting to get in. Like the Padres could always use more starting pitching. I mean, they're throwing out Johnny Brito and like Randy Vasquez. I know they traded them for Juan Soto, but like those guys really aren't anything. So a team like the Padres that just could use more arms. I know just Joe Musgrove is supposed to come back at some point, or even like the Diamondbacks at some point. Like those are the teams that make more sense to me, even more so the Mets too, than the Dodgers. Because like you said, you guys still have so many arms and you have such good quality that should be coming back from injury at some point. Whereas like the Mets or the Padres or the Diamondbacks, they lack pitchers that are better than Kikuchi right now.
For sure. By the way, we got a comment in the super chat. Stepbrother DMAC says, I love you, Mark. I've watched you since 6th grade. So not sure how old this guy is now and how long that's been, but he sounds like a lifelong fan, like a lot of fans out there. Now, as far as position players go, we saw Randy Arozarena. He goes from the Rays to the M's. Justin Turner, I mean, DH, first base, third baseman, goes to the M's. Where do you see the position player market go as far as Luis Robert Jr.? Do you think that he'll be done? I mean, we're talking 3+ years of team control for someone that undoubtedly has all-star level, MVP level ceiling. And last year, 38 home runs, plays over 100 games for the first time in his career. I'm very high on him just because he's a plus defender and a plus bat. And if you keep him healthy, you got a young player in his prime on a great contract. But where are you at with Luis Robert Jr.?
Yeah, I would trade anything for him. I think Luis Robert
Wow.
is one of the most talented players in baseball. He's like, I hate doing this comp because it's lame, but just to give the idea, like if there were to ever be a Mike Trout build next guy up, Luis Robert has that same vibe to me of just like quick right-handed swing, great center fielder, big strong dude. I mean, he's incredible. If the Mets somehow got this guy, I would like cry tears of happiness. It would be no prospect. Get rid of them all. I don't care.
So more rooftop champagne popping,
Yes,
like when the
more
Will
rooftop
Pond sold it.
champagne, we're popping bottles.
That's what's up.
And Luis Robert for sure. And like you mentioned, his contract is incredibly team friendly. Like even in the down years, you're going to be paying $20 million a year in his 28 and 29-year-old seasons for a guy who's going to be a premium center fielder, and he's going to hit probably 30 home runs in a bad year. So the health is a concern with him, but the haul back is going to be wild. And I think because we see how expensive Crochet and Skubal have been on the market right now, I don't know if you actually even can move Robert right now, because it seems like the price is going to be just astronomical. What is even a package for a team that you could get?
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you really have to unload a lot of your top dogs. And if you are a team like the Dodgers, you would have to give some quantity in it too, because you don't have those multiple top 20 prospects like some teams out there. You would have to really hit it on a robust trade package. But I think it's pretty interesting to me how his stock has kind of dropped as far as the perception of him, because it's really, you got to factor, I mean, this is the White Sox organization, man. I mean, these guys, they need to be saved. They survived the White Sox when they leave Chicago. And the truth is, there's not a lot of guys that you can get in their prime for 3+ years at around $60 million essentially that have legitimate MVP upside. I'm not talking about all-star upside. I'm talking legitimate MVP upside. And if you're a team like the Dodgers, you really don't have that center field position figured out completely. James Outman finished third in the Rookie of the Year last season. Hasn't been the same this year. Andy Pa has had a really nice start. Last couple months, he's been below average. You don't want to throw Mookie Betts in center field. You don't want to use Jason Hayward as anything other than a fourth outfielder. You did get Tommy Edman. I do think Edman, that will be most likely his spot when it's all said and done. But yeah, I think Luis Robert Jr., if he goes to a contender, you mentioned his bat speed. Yes, the strikeout rate is high, but we know bat speed plays up in the postseason. I just think he would be electrifying on a contender.
Yeah, he probably has the highest ceiling, or not probably. He for sure has the highest ceiling of any bat available at the deadline, or perceived at least as available. And if they move him, it's going to be I don't want to say Juan Soto-ish haul back with like the C.J. Abrams, James Wood, because Juan Soto's clearly much better. But I think that's going to be the idea, is going to be like, you're going to see two mega prospects along with a couple other smaller guys moving away too.
Absolutely. So now some just general questions about the teams around the league. Which team do you think can increase their World Series odds the highest by getting an A grade trade deadline?
A grade trade deadline that can boost their stuff the most. I think I lean towards the Astros, and I know you Dodgers fans are going to hate that. I lean towards the Astros. I lean towards the Mariners. Those are the two teams that, to me, especially in the American League, I think are a little bit under the radar right now. I know the Mariners' offense in particular, not been great. Their pitching is phenomenal. I mean, that rotation is arguably the best in Major League Baseball, and that bullpen's fantastic. So if they can actually get some offense over in Seattle, they become really scary. And then now what's funny is you talk about the Astros, who were the pitching dominant team for years. If they can go get some pitching over there, they become really scary, because that lineup is fantastic, and they still even have some holes there, but Kyle Tucker's going to be coming back soon. So those are the two teams I think, if they have big deadlines, all of a sudden they're vaulting back up to the front and the top of the leaders in terms of American League champion favorites. And then on the National League side, the team that scares me the most, honestly, probably the Diamondbacks. They just got hot last year at the right time. They have some pieces that I like. Corbin Carroll's starting to turn around. Christian Walker's obviously great. Ketel Marte is one of the better players in the league this season. They have all those guys there. If they can fill in those gaps that they have right now, along with just get some more pitching, they made a run last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they get hot again and get real dangerous too.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I mean, the Astros, that's a true take, because I mean, the truth of the matter is, they know how to pace themselves out better than just about any team in Major League Baseball in the last 5 years. I mean, a couple months ago, people were talking about trading Bregman, a pillar of that franchise. That was never going to happen. If they get starting pitching, that's a team that really rides that momentum. And the Diamondbacks, we saw last season, no one expected them to beat the Dodgers, and they found a way to sweep them in the NLDS. By the way, Lance Lynn gave up another home run just now, but we got someone in the super chat, by the way. He says, 499 super chat, breaking news, Dodgers trade Skubal and Flaherty and eat the Baez contract. Hashtag trust me, bro. So that was it. That's the fake jet passing, the Buster phony. That's not a real insider right there. But so on Wednesday, you wake up, the Mets trade deadline. What do you think they ultimately do? Just kind of what's your read? What's your sense on how they improve this roster after the deadline?
Oh man, Mets fans are gonna hate me. I think they're gonna almost do nothing. I
Oh
think
man,
they're gonna bring in like one more reliever. Like I mentioned, John Brebbia. I think that's gonna be the one. And the only reason being is David Stearns was all over him in the offseason, and then he went to the White Sox, and it looks like the White Sox are ready to move anybody right now. So I think that they'll end up going after a guy like him, and then maybe a depth outfield bat. Like they've been in talks with Conforto, and I know we just got Winker. But if the price is cheap enough, yeah, sure, let's bring in another good outfielder. We still have Ben Gamel on this active roster. So I think, unfortunately, the Mets are going to have a super disappointing trade deadline. They're in a weird spot where we need them to be buyers, but I don't know how much of a huge difference that really makes for them, which I hate to say as a Mets fan. So I think there's going to, unfortunately, be underwhelming for a lot of Mets fans. And you know what? I'd like to set the expectations low so that if I do wake up on Wednesday and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, we did this, we did that. It's New Year's or it's Christmas in July.
oh my God, just like Jose Iglesias' hit song, #1 on the Latin charts, by the way. Yeah, if you're a Mets fan, I think one of the interesting things to me is just asking Mets fans and people that follow that team closely, just how has the Cohen experience gone so far? Because he broke out the bank early. You got Lindor. A couple seasons later, I mean, you invest in starting pitching Verlander and Max Scherzer. We know that money is no object for Uncle Cohen, right? Uncle Steven. But how has that process gone so far? Because you trade away Scherzer and you got Acuna, in the trade for the prospect. So, like, I mean, just how has the overall just Mets fan experience been with the ownership change and just kind of where you're at?
I'm gonna be annoying and say I love it, even though there's been no actual success whatsoever. But knowing how bad the bad place that the organization was in when they took over, it was pretty impossible to think that it was gonna just change overnight. But like the fact that we have the pitching lab in the minor leagues, we've been able to develop these pitching prospects now, seemingly out of nowhere, and it seems like the organization is at least being smart, using their brains, not just being cheap and trying to cut corners. Like that alone as a Mets fan is super refreshing. And like you said, money is no object. When the money needs to be spent, he has shown us he will spend it. And he doesn't care on who, as long as he thinks or they think that he's the right fit. That's the case. And then bringing a guy like David Stearns, who was just so crucial in building the Milwaukee Brewers into the organization that they've become with no money. I can't wait to see what he does here in New York. I just hope Mets fans give him a chance because we are vicious sometimes.
Yeah, the good thing is the resources are there, right? And you can't build a World Series winner overnight. Got to develop the farm system. I think the Dodgers have kind of made it look easy. They kind of set the foundation of, okay, it's going to take a decade, but you can get that machine rolling. And I think the Mets have as good as a chance as anyone to do it. Got some questions down below. Someone wants me to ask you, Mark, what is your favorite moment as a Mets fan?
Favorite moment as a Mets fan? Ooh, that is a good one. I've got a bunch. The first Mets memory I ever remember, and like this is not my favorite, but it's one of my favorite memories, is Todd Pratt hitting the home run in the '99. And my dad wrote his phone number. I was like 3 or 4 years old at the time. Wrote his phone number on a piece of paper, and the number looked like he put 911. So I called 911 like 7 times, being like, Todd Pratt hit a home run.
That's awesome.
Hit a home run. And then the police came to my grandparents' house. My grandparents didn't speak a lick of English. They spoke Greek. So you have like 3-year-old me trying to explain to police officers what was going on and why I called the emergency number 7 times in a row. So that one's one of my favorites. But I mean, truthfully, this sucks because we didn't win, but like the 2015 run was pretty incredible. Getting to experience that like as an adult and going to the games with my dad, going to the World Series, seeing David Wright hit that home run in the World Series in Game 3 was pretty impressive, and seeing a win just in general for a team that's been a lifetime of losing for me was pretty awesome.
I think for me, I'm going Andy Chavez's catch.
See, like if we won, I could pick that one, but we lost like 20 minutes later, and I threw a chair
That's
as a
true.
kid, and I cried hysterically. Like that's a great moment. Can't be one of my favorite memories though.
2006 NLCS Game 7. They're kind of pulling back there. Okay, someone else wants me to ask you, do the Mets end up with Soto next season?
Probably not. I think he's a Yankee. I really hope he hates the Yankees and wants to come play across town, but how do you get that guy there and let him out of your hands? I feel like they are going to unload the Brinks truck, and then you build around him with some cheaper guys, because him and Judge together in that lineup, there's the only people that really compete are the Dodgers. Everybody else can't really come close.
For sure. By the way, I will say 2006 Mets Dodgers, that base running blunder with JD Drew. That's my worst moment as a Dodgers fan against the Mets. I will throw that one in there. But Mr. Giraffe Neck Mark, you are the man, one of the kings of baseball YouTube. Join us here on the Dugout. Definitely, if you probably already subscribed, but if you haven't yet, go head over and subscribe to his channel. Go follow him on the X. All things Mets, all things baseball. And we thank you so much this busy time. Join us here, Mr. Mark.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. And hopefully we both have a nice trade deadline. I'll give you guys that as well.
Hey, if
both
we
come out on
get
top, we're happy. If
we go get Crochet, we got a rooftop here. If we go get Crochet, we are going to go upstairs, get out the bubbly, get out the champagne, do the Giraffe Neck Mark when you had the ownership change. We're going to try to impersonate that. But thank you so much. And yeah, enjoy your deadline. Keep that phone refreshed. It's the F5 season. And thanks again, Mr. Mark.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, thanks a lot. That is Giraffe Neck Mark. Kind of was a little hesitant to call him Giraffe Neck Mark. I didn't want to say, right, but Mr. Mark kind of worked for me. But yeah, look, I mean, this guy, he knows his stuff. And I think it's tough for teams and fans of teams to accept that maybe their team is not going to go out there and get the guy. And certainly if Jack Flaherty goes to the Yankees, that could be a gut punch to the Astros, to the Mets, to the Dodgers. Could also indicate that the Dodgers are hopefully at the 15-yard line with Garrett Crochet or another starting pitcher, because I just think that there's no world where they can wake up on Wednesday without acquiring a starting pitcher. And I'm not talking about Rich Hill or someone like that, and think that they gave themselves the best chance to win the World Series. I think if you look at the starting rotation with Tyler Glass now, the ERA has gone up every month. There's no guarantees Yamamoto's coming back. I think if you're the Dodgers, you absolutely have to go out there and make a big move. Let's focus on the comments here. Stop Cashman from getting Flaherty. That's from Mr. Classic. Screw the Yankees from Mr. Classic. Bruce Davis, why would I follow a Mets guy? I'm a Dodgers fan. Well, because he talks about the whole league and he talks about the Dodgers sometime. But we got Jack. They're just going to bring a starting pitcher and break him. Why bother? Jack, look, I understand the frustration. I do. But the truth of the matter is that all throughout Major League Baseball, teams are dealing with injury issues, and it's because of the youth level, young baseball players, young pitchers throwing too hard too early. It's because of the velocity revolution. Players are just throwing harder than they ever have. They are nastier than they've ever been. So it's not something that's exclusive to the Dodgers. Michael Billigan, do whatever it takes to get Jack Flaherty and Andrew Chafin. That'd be a nice pickup. I would like to see Chafin in Dodger blue. One World Series every 32 years. That's from BC. Look, I mean, that's a fact. You got to win more World Series if you're this group. We got Michael Negretti says Rich Hill applied for AARP. Ouch. We got Flaherty is ours from Mr. Classic. D-Mac, who's Gonzalez in that trade? Thank you, D-Mac. We got any trade news? Let's see. You guys keep with the hashtag trust me, bros, but it would be cool. Let's see, Jack. One of these days, if we just stay live 24 hours, we'll get something. We did get the big Justin Turner to the Mariners trade. But looks like there's nothing.
I got a question.
What's up?
All right. In all the trade deadlines that you've covered, what is the one move that caught you completely off guard?
Ooh, for the Dodgers?
Just all of baseball.
Man, that's a really, really good question.
Or a couple, top three. Doesn't have to be one specific one.
Well, I mean, I would say, Juan Soto to the Padres, nothing really tops that in recent memory, just because it felt like the Dodgers had a little traction and you were fearing that they wouldn't let him go to a rival like the Padres. And we saw that team ultimately beat the Dodgers in the NLDS. But I mean, you look at some of these moves, when the Yankees are never sellers. Yankees are buyers. Right? Yankees, they win World Series titles. So when they traded Andrew Miller to the Cleveland, now they're called the Guardians in 2016, and he was lights out. He won the LCS, the ALCS MVP. That was kind of one of those moves you were saying, wow, the times have changed a little bit. So, I mean, anytime you get those big time, just blockbuster trades, I mean, Max Scherzer, as far as Dodgers fans, I think that will always go down as the always oh my goodness, they had us, in the first quarter type thing. And then we came back because there's not one Dodger fan out there that wasn't depressed because the Padres looked like they had acquired the player that the Dodgers were after. And not only was that not true, they ended up getting Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, an all-star shortstop. So there was the big, wait a minute, we got Max Scherzer, here's a high. Oh, Trey Turner, another high. And then another like, wait a minute, what does this mean for Corey Seager? Right? So the great thing about these trades is when they hit like crack. We know that. But also it's kind of, how does it impact other players? How does this truly impact the contenders? But yeah, I mean, a lot of the trades during the years at the deadline, it's different because you have one firm deadline. Before it was different. You like when the Astros picked up Justin Verlander, that was after the first deadline, and we saw what that did. And at the time, there was a big debate about Darvish and Justin Verlander, and ultimately Verlander and that trash can Astros team won the World Series. But how about you, Antonio? What were some ones that like really blindsided you?
I'm going to say, well, blindsided, I don't know. That you mentioned the Max Scherzer. I saw that Ken Rosenthal, MLB on Fox. They already had the Photoshop with him. I was like, oh my gosh, no way. But like you said, trade Turner to Scherzer. That was such a relief for me. But I don't know. I know this isn't like officially like the trade deadline, but when Adrian Gonzalez and Nick Punto and Josh Beckett came over, that was just like, compared with Manny Ramirez too back in 2008, but with getting Agon and Josh Beckett, that was just so awesome for me. I was shocked.
That was huge. I mean, that was definitely a time when you're like, oh my goodness, we have made it out of the darkness of the McCourt era. And part of that deal was really a precursor to what was to come for how the Dodgers were going to run their franchise, because you were absorbing a ton of salary. You were absorbing some high-risk contracts. You took on Crawford, who you didn't know what you were going to get out of him and the injury issues that he had dealt with. But I think for me, the cool thing about the deadline is now that there's more teams that are in contention, that it's adding a level of parity to Major League Baseball that teams are still adjusting to. Will we see less impact deals, or we see more deals? I mean, we'll kind of find out in the next 5 or 6 years. I think it's going to take a little longer to really evaluate kind of what they have in this new era of Major League Baseball. But yeah, I mean, hopefully if you are a team out there, there's no team I think that really scares anyone as far as the way baseball is. I mean, you don't have that prime Warriors team with KD and Steph, right? You don't have that juggernaut of a team. And we know that, look at the Dodgers, man. They won 111 games and they won one game in the postseason a couple years ago. So you just never know what's going to happen in the postseason. So I think teams are going to really bet on themselves and bet on the roster they've put together. One trade that really kind of blew my mind a long time ago was when David Justice went to the Yankees, because I was a big David Justice fan. And we know that Yankees team, that was the last team that went back to back. It's usually the Yankees, man. Or, when Roger Clemens, kind of it almost felt like a trade when he announced he was coming back mid-season. Make a move. The Padres are scared. That's from Matthew over on YouTube, $4.99 super chat. Look, the Dodgers, the lead is definitely getting smaller and smaller, feels like every single day. And we kind of said, okay, the Dodgers, they are absolutely running away with the division. Well, I mean, if you're the Dodgers, you're 6.5 games up on the Padres, 6.5 games up, and you have a 2-game set in San Diego tomorrow. San Diego wins both those games at 4.5. That's the doomsday scenario. If you don't make a big trade, or the Padres are lurking to try to pull a big deal off, and then you take 2, then your lead in the division starts to get smaller and smaller. But that's going to do it for The Dugout. This is a show covering all of Major League Baseball. You're going to see this twice a week. Mark, great guest. We appreciate him joining us here on The Dugout. And always be sure to subscribe, comment down below on all your takes on all things Dodger baseball, Major League Baseball. And we will be back in a few minutes with Ned Colletti, former GM of your Los Angeles Dodgers. So stay tuned here on Dodgers Nation YouTube. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, see you later.